The stars seemed endless from the observation deck of the Iridian research vessel. The ship floated quietly at the edge of their territory, its crew of scientists busy collecting data about a nearby nebula. The Iridians had explored space for hundreds of years, always seeking knowledge rather than conquest. Their tall, slender bodies and large eyes were perfectly adapted for their scientific pursuits, allowing them to work tirelessly in the dim light of their research stations. Chief Researcher Lee stood quietly, his four-fingered hands clasped behind, his back as he watched the nebula's swirling colors. The Iridians had never needed weapons. In all their years of space travel, they had met only 3 other species, all peaceful traders like themselves. Their ships carried scientific equipment, not guns. Chief Lee called out his assistant Han from across the deck. "We're picking up unusual energy readings from Sector 7. Lee walked over to Han's station, leaning forward to study the display. The readings made no sense. Massive energy spikes unlike anything in their database. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Lee asked. Han shook her head. The pattern is too regular. Whatever this is, it's artificial. Within hours, they had their answer. The first Void Swarm ships appeared at the edge of their sensors, black, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Iridian captain, a veteran explorer named Tai, immediately sent greetings on all frequencies. The Void Swarm responded with weapons fire. "We need to warn Homeworld," Tai said, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. The research vessel was not built for speed, but Tai's skilled piloting allowed them to escape, barely. As they fled, their long-range sensors captured the destruction of 3 Iridian outposts. Back on the Iridian homeworld, the Council of Elders gathered to hear their report. Elder Jin, nearly 200 years old, leaned heavily on his walking stick as Lee described the attack. "They destroyed everything," Lee said, his voice breaking. "The outposts, the research stations, everyone. No demands, no communication. Attempts, just cut destruction." The news grew worse in the following weeks. The Void Swarm moved methodically through Iridian space, destroying everything in their path. The Iridians, with no military and only basic shields on their vessels, were helpless. In a desperate bid to find a solution, Lee and his team were given permission to search the ancient archives, records of signals captured from deep space over centuries of exploration. They worked day and night, sifting through countless transmissions from unknown sources. On the 7th day, Han made a discovery. "Look at this," she said, waving Lee over to her workstation. "These transmissions are from a system about 80 light-years from here. They stopped coming about 500 years ago, but before that they were constant." Lee studied the data. "Can you decode any of it?" Han nodded excitedly. "Our computers have already translated parts of it. They called themselves humans, and Lee, they fought wars. The concept was almost alien to the Iridians. While they understood conflict in theory, their species had evolved past violence thousands of years ago. But now, facing extinction, Lee felt a strange hope. "Show me." "Everything," he ordered. For 3 days, Lee and Han immersed themselves in human transmissions. They learned fragments of human history, terrible wars but also stories of courage and sacrifice. Most importantly, they found technical specifications embedded in military communications. Their weapons were incredible, Han whispered as they reviewed the data. If even half of this is true, they could have easily defeated the Void Swarm. Lee looked at the star charts. But the transmissions stopped completely 500 years ago. They may be extinct. Or they left, Han suggested. Some of the last transmissions mentioned colony ships. With the Void Swarm only weeks away from reaching their homeworld, Lee presented his findings to the Council of Elders. His plan was simple and desperate. Modify their strongest communication array to send a message toward Earth's coordinates. "We have nothing to lose," Lee told them. "If humans still exist, if even some of their weapons still exist, they might help us." Elder Jin looked doubtful. "Why would an unknown species help us?" Lee played a fragment of a human transmission, a rescue operation, where humans had risked their lives to save strangers from a burning building. Their history shows they often helped others, even at great risk to themselves. It's worth trying. The council approved the plan. For 6 days, Lee, Han, and their team worked to modify the planet's largest communication array. The message they crafted was simple, a distress call with their coordinates, translated into all the human languages they had been able to identify. On the day they sent the message, Lee stood with Han beside the massive array as it powered up. The Void Swarm had destroyed another Iridian colony that morning. Their species now faced extinction within months. "Do you really think they'll answer?" Han asked quietly. Lee looked up at the stars, thinking of the strange, violent, compassionate species they had discovered in those ancient transmissions. "I don't know," he admitted, "but their transmissions showed something special about humans. They never gave up, even when things seemed hopeless. Maybe some part of humanity still exists out there, and maybe, just maybe, they'll remember what it means to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." The array hummed with power, and the message, humanity's last hope, streaked away into the darkness of space. 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, everything was still. The massive underground complex known as Bastion 1 had been silent for 487 years. Dark corridors stretched for miles, huge hangar bays sat empty, and computer terminals gathered dust. The only sign of life was a faint blue light pulsing in, the central command center, the heart of Guardian, the facility's artificial intelligence. Guardian wasn't truly asleep. For nearly 5 centuries, it had remained in low-power mode, running basic maintenance routines and scanning for signals. Every 30 minutes it was patient. It had been designed to wait. The signal came at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time, a desperate plea for help, traveling across 80 light-years of space. Guardian's systems immediately registered the distress call, analyzing the unfamiliar language and comparing it to known patterns. Within seconds, the AI had translated enough to understand. An alien species was facing extinction at the hands of an aggressive force. Throughout the facility, lights flickered on. Ventilation systems roared to life, pushing out stale air, NT. The massive server room, cooling systems activated as Guardian's processors reached full capacity for the first time in centuries. Protocol 7 activated, Guardian announced to the empty halls. Distress signal confirmed, beginning revival sequence. In the medical wing, a single stasis pod hummed as it began the careful process of waking its occupant. Commander Kim had been the last to enter stasis, insisting that someone remain behind to oversee Bastion 1 while the rest of humanity departed for the stars. She had intended to sleep for only 20 years, just long enough for the colony ships to establish new homes. But plans had changed, messages had stopped coming, and Guardian had kept her sleeping, waiting for the right moment. That moment had arrived. Elsewhere in the facility, massive assembly lines started up. Robotic arms moved with precision, building components for weapons, vehicles, and spacecraft. In the deepest level of Bastion 1, 6 enormous walking fortresses, each 10 stories tall, stood in their maintenance bays as diagnostic programs checked their systems. In orbit above Earth, satellites that had appeared dead for centuries suddenly powered up, their sensors scanning the planet and surrounding space. And on the dark side of the Moon, the pride of Earth's defense forces, the Dreadnought-class warship Defender, awakened from its long slumber. Back in the medical wing, Commander Kim took her first breath of fresh air in nearly 500 years. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. Her muscles felt weak but functional. The stasis technology had prevented atrophy. Her mind, however, was racing. "Guardian," she called out, her voice raspy from centuries of disuse. "Status report." The AI's calm voice filled the room. "Good morning, Commander. Today is May 14th, 2931. You have been in stasis for 487 years, 3 months, and 17 days. A Protocol 7 distress signal has been received from a non-human intelligence. The signal has been verified as genuine." Kim sat up slowly, trying to process the information. Nearly 500 years. Everyone she had known, everyone who hadn't left Earth on the colony ships, was long dead. "Show me the signal," she ordered. A screen on the wall activated, displaying the translated message. Kim read it carefully twice. Then she stood up, wobbling slightly before finding her balance. "Has there been any contact from the colony ships?" From any human outposts. Negative, Commander. The last transmission from Colony Alpha was received 451 years ago. It reported successful establishment of 3 secondary colonies. No further communications have been received. Kim walked to the window overlooking the medical bay. In the room below, medical robots were preparing revival chambers for the skeleton crew. 20 soldiers who had volunteered to remain in stasis as a final defense force. So we don't know if humanity still exists out there, she said quietly. Correct, Commander. However, based on the last transmissions received, human civilization was thriving in the colony systems. It is likely that they simply stopped communicating with Earth once they established their new societies. Kim nodded. It made sense. The exodus had been driven by Earth's dwindling resources and the promise of pristine new worlds. Once established on their new planets, the colonists had little reason to maintain contact with a dying Earth. They had taken their culture, their technology, and their future with them, leaving behind only what they no longer needed, the massive war machines built during the resource wars, the orbital defense platforms, the dreadnoughts. In a way, they had abandoned their past, including her. Guardian, what's the status of our defense systems? All systems are operational, Commander. The Defender is at 92% combat readiness. The 6 Behemoth-class walking fortresses are at 87% and rising. Orbital defense platforms are online and awaiting commands. Production facilities are active and generating ammunition and spare parts. Kim walked to her uniform cabinet, finding everything exactly as she had left it centuries ago. As she dressed, she felt the weight of the decision before her. Humanity had moved on, leaving Earth behind. But someone, somewhere in the stars, needed help, and she had the power to provide it. Begin revival of the Defense Force, Kim ordered, and prepare the Defender for immediate departure, once systems are at 100%. May I ask what you intend to do, Commander? Guardian inquired. Kim looked at the distress signal once more, thinking of a species she had never met, facing annihilation, from an enemy she didn't know. Then she thought of the oath she had taken so long ago, to protect the innocent, to stand against aggression, to use Earth's military might as a shield, not a sword. We're going to answer that call, she said firmly. Humanity might have left Earth behind, but we haven't forgotten who we are. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. In the hangars below, massive engines rumbled to life. Earth's war machines, abandoned but not forgotten, were awakening. And they were ready for battle. The Defender glided silently away from Earth's orbit, its massive engines pushing the warship to speeds that would have seemed impossible 5 centuries ago. On the bridge, Commander Kim stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as the blue-green planet that had been humanity's cradle grew smaller on the main view screen. Strange to think nobody's been up here for almost 500 years, said Officer Park from the navigation station. He was young, or had been young when he entered stasis, with a quick mind and quicker hands on the controls. It's stranger to think we're about to make first contact with an alien species, replied Officer Sun, the ship's tactical officer. Her fingers moved steadily over her console as she ran diagnostics on the Defender's weapon systems. In all our history, we never met anyone else out there. Now we're rushing to save people we've never even seen. Kim nodded. That's what humans do. We help when we can. Behind the Defender came 6 transport ships, each carrying one of the massive behemoth walking fortresses. Around them flew squadrons of fighter drones, controlled remotely from the Defender's combat center. It was an impressive force, the best that 24th century Earth had to offer. Whether it would be enough against the Void Swarm remained to be seen. Setting. Course for the Iridian coordinates, Park announced. At maximum speed will arrive in 12 days. Make it happen, Kim ordered. Then to Guardian. Keep monitoring for any transmissions from human colonies. If they're still out there, I want to know. The days passed in a blur of training and preparation. The 20 soldiers who formed Kim's skeleton crew had been the best of the best when they entered stasis. Now they worked around the clock to familiarize themselves with systems that, while perfectly maintained by Guardian, felt like ancient history to them. On the 4th day, they received their first sign that humanity hadn't vanished completely. "Commander, I'm picking up a transmission," Sun called out, her eyes wide with surprise. It's in English, coming from a system about 30 light-years from here." Kim rushed to Sun's station. "Put it through." The message was fragmented, but clear enough. A standard shipping manifest between two colonies, discussing the transport of agricultural equipment. It wasn't meant for them, just regular communications between human settlements that had flourished, far from Earth. "They made it," Park whispered. "The colonies survived." Over the next few days, as the Defender pushed deeper into space, they intercepted more transmissions. Slowly, the story of humanity's diaspora came together. The colonies hadn't just survived, they had thrived. Dozens of worlds now bore human footprints. They had developed new technologies, formed new alliances, and spread further than anyone on old Earth could have imagined. But not once in all those transmissions was there any mention of the Iridians or the Void Swarm. Humanity had moved outward, away from the section of the galaxy where this conflict was unfolding. "They don't even know it's happening," Kim said during a meeting with her officers in the ship's war room. "They've been so focused on expansion that they've missed a war unfolding right under their noses." "Should we contact them?" Sun asked. "Ask for reinforcements?" Kim studied the star charts, considering the option. No, by the time they mobilized, it would be too late for the Iridians. Besides, from what we've intercepted, it sounds like the colonies abandoned most of their military technology centuries ago. They've been at peace so long, they wouldn't even know how to fight. "So it's just us," Park said quietly. "Earth's leftovers." Kim looked around at her small crew. 20 souls against what appeared to be an overwhelming enemy force. "We're not leftovers. We're humanity's guardians. When everyone else moved on, we stayed behind to protect what matters. And right now, that's the Iridian people." While the Defender raced toward its destination, the situation for the Iridians grew more desperate. Through the distress beacon, Guardian translated regular updates from the alien researchers. The Void Swarm had destroyed 3 more colonies. Millions of Iridians had fled toward their homeworld, creating a refugee crisis. The Iridian Council of Elders had attempted peaceful contact 6 times. Each attempt was met with focused attacks that left thousands dead. On the 10th day of their journey, Chief Researcher Lee sent a personal message. "If you're listening, if anyone is coming to help, please hurry. The Void Swarm has reached our outer defense perimeter. Our homeworld has perhaps 3 days before they arrive. We have evacuated as many as we can to underground shelters, but we cannot hide forever. Please, if you exist, if you're really coming, hurry." Kim played the message for her entire crew. No one spoke for several seconds after it ended. "Can we go any faster?" Sun finally asked, looking at Park. The navigation officer shook his head. "We're already pushing the engines beyond recommended limits. If we push harder, we risk not arriving at all." "Then we arrive exactly when we need to," Kim said firmly. "And we make every second count. Guardian, run Battle Simulation Alpha 7 again. Officer Sun, I want another review of the Void Swarm attack patterns from the Iridian data. Officer Park, plot an approach vector that puts us between the enemy fleet and the Iridian homeworld the moment we arrive." As her crew rushed to obey, Kim turned to the view screen, watching the stars streak by. Somewhere ahead, a peaceful species faced extinction. Behind them, humanity had moved on, leaving its warriors and weapons behind like discarded toys. But those toys still had teeth, and Commander Kim intended to show the Void Swarm exactly how sharp they were. The Defender dropped, out of faster-than-light travel with a brilliant flash of light, emerging at the edge of the Iridian solar system. The 6 transport ships appeared moments later, followed by the fighter squadrons. On the bridge, Commander Kim watched as the tactical display filled with red markers. The Void Swarm fleet, nearly 200 ships strong, moving in perfect formation toward the blue-green world at the system's center. "We're too late," Officer Sun whispered, her eyes fixed on the display. "They've already started their attack." But Kim saw something the others missed. "No, look, they're still forming. Up. This is their staging area. The main assault hasn't begun yet." She leaned forward, studying the enemy movements. "They're confident, taking their time. They don't expect any resistance." "Commander," Guardian's calm voice filled the bridge. "I'm detecting transmissions from the planet's surface. The Iridians have spotted us. Put them through, Kim ordered. The view screen flickered and a tall, slender being appeared. Chief Researcher Lee looked nothing like a human, with four-fingered hands, iridescent skin, and large almond-shaped eyes, but the hope in those eyes was unmistakably familiar. "You came," Lee said simply. We hoped, but we didn't truly believe anyone would answer." "Earth Defense Forces responding to your distress call," Kim replied formally. "We're here to help." Lee seemed to sway slightly, overcome with emotion. "The Void Swarm, they've destroyed everything. Our outposts, our colonies. They're positioning to strike our homeworld now. We have no weapons that can stop them." "We do," Kim said. "Get your people to safety. We'll handle the Void Swarm." As the transmission ended, Officer Park reported from his station. "The enemy fleet has noticed us. Several ships are breaking formation, heading our way." "They're sending a scouting party," Sun said. 7 ships, probably to see what we are, before they commit more forces." Kim nodded. "Let's give them a proper introduction. Launch Behemoth 1. Throughout the Defender, klaxons sounded as the crew rushed to battle stations. In the massive hangar bay, the first transport ship opened its doors, revealing the towering form of a behemoth walking fortress. The machine was a marvel of 24th century engineering, 10 stories tall, armed with more firepower than an entire pre-space age military, and protected by layered energy shields that could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. "Behemoth 1 is online," reported the mech's pilot from the combat center. "Ready for deployment." "Drop it right in their path," Kim ordered. "Let's see how they respond to something they can't simply overwhelm." The transport ship moved into position, then released its cargo. The behemoth dropped through space, its massive engines firing as it oriented itself toward the approaching Void Swarm scouts. To the enemy, it must have looked like madness, a single machine against 7 warships. That was exactly what Kim wanted them to think. "Enemy ships are increasing speed," Sun reported. "They're moving to surround the behemoth." "Hold position," Kim ordered the pilot. "Wait for them to commit." The 7 Void Swarm vessels formed a loose circle around the behemoth, keeping their distance as they analyzed this strange new threat. Long-range scanners probed the walking fortress, trying to determine its capabilities. "They're charging weapons," Sun warned. Kim smiled. Now, the behemoth erupted into action. Its central cannon, a weapon designed to level mountains, fired directly at the lead Void Swarm ship. The energy beam cut through the enemy vessel like paper, splitting it in half before continuing on to cripple a second ship behind it. Before the remaining Void Swarm ships could react, the behemoth's secondary weapons opened fire. Dozens of missiles streaked outward in all directions, each tracking a specific target with unerring precision. The enemy's defensive systems seemed inadequate against Earth's ancient weapons, designed to penetrate defenses that had apparently been forgotten by the galaxy. In 30 seconds, 5 Void Swarm ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 2 turned to flee. "Fighter squadrons Alpha and Beta, pursue and eliminate," Kim ordered. "Don't let them report back." The fighter drones, smaller than the enemy ships but faster and more maneuverable, overtook the fleeing vessels quickly. The bridge crew watched, in silence as the last scouts were reduced to debris. "First round to us," Sun said, a note of pride in her voice. But Kim's eyes were fixed on the main Void Swarm fleet. "They're changing formation," she observed, "accelerating toward us. Looks like we got their attention." Indeed, the entire enemy fleet had abandoned its approach to the Iridian homeworld and was now moving toward the human forces. The Void Swarm. Commander, whoever or whatever they were, had recognized a greater threat and was responding accordingly. "Deploy the remaining behemoths," Kim ordered. "Formation Delta. Guardian, activate the Defender's main weapon systems." Throughout the ship, massive gun ports opened as weapons that hadn't been fired in anger for 5 centuries prepared for battle. The remaining 5 behemoths dropped from their transports, taking positions in a loose defensive screen in front of the Defender. "Enemy will be in range in 3 minutes," Sun reported. Kim opened a channel to her entire force. "This is Commander Kim. The people of Earth may have moved on to new worlds and new lives, but we have not forgotten who we are. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. We fight today not just for the Iridians, but for everything. Humanity once stood for courage, compassion, and the willingness to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. She paused, watching as the massive enemy fleet approached, nearly 200 ships against her 7. They think their numbers give them power, she continued. They think we'll break before their advance. Let's show them how Earth used to. Fight! As the Void Swarm closed to attack range, the Defender and its behemoths held position, seemingly outnumbered and outgunned. But Commander Kim had one advantage the enemy couldn't possibly understand: 5 centuries of human military strategy that the galaxy had forgotten, and she was about to remind them. The battle lasted 17 hours. When it ended, the vast Void Swarm fleet, once nearly 200 ships strong, was scattered across the Iridian system in broken pieces. The Defender hung in orbit above the Iridian homeworld, scorched and damaged, but still intact. 3 of the 6 behemoths had survived, their massive forms floating in space like ancient guardians. On the bridge of the Defender, Commander Kim sat heavily in her chair, exhaustion etched across her face. Around her, her small crew worked quietly, tending to damaged systems and counting the cost of their victory. "Final report," Kim said, her voice hoarse from shouting orders through the long battle. Officer Sun looked up from her tactical station. "The Void Swarm is completely broken. 37 ships destroyed, 52 disabled beyond repair. The rest have fled the system. We lost 3 behemoths and 67% of our fighter drones. And our people. 2 dead, 5 injured. All civilians on the planet are safe." Kim closed her eyes briefly, honoring the sacrifice of those 2 crew members, people who had slept for centuries only to die defending aliens they'd never met. When she opened her eyes again, her resolve was firm. "Guardian, open a channel to Chief Researcher Lee." The view screen flickered to life, showing Lee standing in what appeared to be a government building. Behind him, dozens of Iridians moved about, their normally calm demeanor replaced by excited gestures and movements. "Commander." "Kim," Lee said, bowing slightly, "I lack the words to express what you and your people have done for us." "We answered a call for help," Kim replied simply. "That's what we were trained to do." Lee shook his head in wonder. "You came across vast distances, risked your lives for people you had never met. Our historians are already calling this a most significant event in our species' history." "What will you do now?" Kim asked. "Begin again," Lee said. "Rebuild what was destroyed, and perhaps—" He hesitated. "Perhaps begin to think differently about our place in the galaxy. We have always been peaceful explorers, but peace must sometimes be defended." He gestured around him. "Our council has already voted to develop defensive technologies, not to conquer but to protect." Kim nodded. "A wise decision. The universe isn't always kind." "Commander," Lee said, his large eyes blinking rapidly in what Kim had learned was an expression of deep emotion. "Our people would be honored if you and your crew would join us on the surface. There is to be a celebration, a thanksgiving for our salvation." 3 days later, Commander Kim stood on a massive balcony overlooking the Iridian capital city. Beside her stood Officers Park and Sun, along with the rest of her surviving crew, all wearing their formal Earth Defense Force uniforms. Before them stretched a sea of Iridians, millions of them filling every street and square as far as the eye could see. "I've never seen so many people in one place," Park whispered. "And they're all here for us." Elder Jin, the oldest member of the Iridian Council, stepped forward to address the crowd. His voice, amplified by hidden technology, carried across the vast gathering. "Today, we honor those who came from beyond the stars to save us when we could not save ourselves," Jin announced. "They are called humans, and though we believed their kind extinct, they answered our desperate call. Their courage, their sacrifice, their compassion has given our people a future." The crowd erupted in a sound unlike anything Kim had ever heard. Harmonic humming that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. It was, she realized, the Iridian equivalent of applause. Later, at a smaller gathering with the Council of Elders, Kim studied a star chart showing the known positions of human colony worlds. There were dozens, spread across a vast section of the galaxy. "They've done well," she said quietly to Sun. "Humanity has flourished out there." "But they forgot something important," Sun replied. They forgot what we stood for. Kim wasn't so sure. That night, as she sat alone in her quarters aboard the Defender, Guardian interrupted her thoughts. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions from human colony worlds." Kim sat up straight. "What kind of transmissions?" "Messages addressed specifically to us. News of our battle has spread. It seems several Iridian trading vessels made contact with human colonies and told them what happened here." The first message appeared on her screen, a formal communication from the United Colonial Government, expressing astonishment at the Defender's existence and requesting immediate contact. More messages followed. From individual colonies, from military outposts Kim hadn't known existed, from ordinary citizens. All with the same theme: amazement that Earth's defenders still existed, that the old weapons still functioned, that the ancient oath to protect the innocent was still being honored. The next morning, Kim gathered her crew on the bridge. "We've received new orders," she told them, unable to keep a small smile from her face. "From the Colonial Defense Command." "They're recalling us?" Park asked, his expression falling. "No," Kim replied. "They're asking us to stay here, to establish a permanent defense outpost in the Iridian system, and they're sending more ships, newer ships, to join us." She looked around at her small band of warriors. "It seems we've reminded humanity of something they were in danger of forgetting." 6 weeks later, 3 sleek vessels from the colonial fleet arrived in the Iridian system. As Kim watched them approach on the view screen, Officer Sun stood beside her. "They look so different from the Defender," Sun observed. "Smaller, faster." "But they still carry the same emblem," Kim said, pointing to the Earth Defense Force insignia prominently displayed on the lead ship. Some things don't change. On the Iridian homeworld below, construction had begun on a massive monument in the central plaza of the capital city. It depicted a behemoth walking fortress, standing protectively over a group of Iridian figures. At its base, in both Iridian and English, were inscribed the words that had become Commander Kim's unofficial motto: "We stand between the darkness and the light. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is our legacy. This is what makes us human."